All right. Hey everyone, it's Professor Parker. A lot of times when I'm grading assignments and I'm seeing, whether or not students are understanding expectations, I might have to reroute the approach sometimes. But it's still important, to listen to the collaborate sessions as well, because a lot of times I'm answering questions that you may have, and I'm answering those questions in those collaborate sessions. For instance, when it comes to in-text citations and the reference page, make sure you are immediately citing. So when I say in-text citation, I mean the parenthetical citation that comes directly after your paraphrase and direct quote. You have to cite not only when you're paraphrasing, but also if you're directly quoting. Okay. So just some of those ideas or expectations when it comes to APA needs to be consistent as you are moving through the course. So what I decided to do here was provide you with just a brief screencast in regards to the lit review. Okay, so remember, unit 4 is probably that big unit for a lot of students because it's your first time really putting together that lit review and getting that feedback. Speaking of feedback, it is extremely important by now you know how to access my comments. I'm not just referring to the rubric, okay? I also mentioned this in my collaborate session, specifically unit 1. I do remember mentioning it in the first one, but you have to go back into the grade book. Those emails that are sent to you guys, they're only giving you a snapshot of, what the feedback is saying. And it's not just a rubric. I actually go in and I give you annotated comments, okay? So that's very important as you are continuing with the class. Luckily, we're only in unit 4. Sometimes students don't find out until unit 8 that I'm giving feedback. But there's also an announcement, one of the very first announcements in the course room that introduces you to how to access the feedback as well. Okay. So remember, I'm actually giving you feedback in your assignments. Okay. So what I wanted to do briefly was to use the example here. This example comes from the Writing Center. There's another one in the course room. I could have used, that one as well. But I'm just going to go ahead with this one because this one actually shows the conclusion for the lit review, and I'll explain that momentarily. So I wanted to kind of walk you through this lit review. Because, I am seeing some students are struggling with the lit review, but one major thing to remember, as stated before, is that you have to cite. Citing leads to academic dishonesty, and in so many words, that's another term for plagiarism. Okay, I don't like to accuse my students of plagiarism. A lot of times, plagiarism is not intended. Okay. So when I see that happening early on, I do make sure I contact students, so that you can see the mistakes that are being made. I can't grade an assignment that does not have any in-text citations. I just can't grade it. I have to know where your voice is at in the assignment and what's the research, okay? And furthermore, you have to give credits to these sources, okay? But as I'm walking you through this, all right, so this one is just the lit review itself. It doesn't show the introduction. The introduction comes before the lit review. So for your introduction, and I'm not quite sure why this one doesn't have the introduction because it should be the unit 4 example for the Writing Center, but nonetheless, this still does have the lit review itself. But remember, the introduction comes before the lit review. Okay, your thesis statement is the last sentence or sentences in the introduction. In my unit 3 collaborate session, I did go over expectations for the introduction. So when you get a chance, go back and review that recording. All right, so pretty much this one does have the 7th edition format, okay, for the header and the title page. Okay. The 7th edition only includes the page numbers in the right-hand corner. Some people are still using the 6th edition header, where you're putting the titles. That is not the 7th edition. So the 7th edition has changed. So be sure that you are making those necessary changes. All right, so some people are not using headings at all. And one thing I mentioned in my Unit 3 Collaborate session is to please use those headings. The headings are important for projects, not essays. This is a project, not an essay. So it's very important you're using headings to guide your audience, okay? And I do like that the example, pretty much has the headings, which is great. What I don't like sometimes is the terminology that may be used that might throw students off. So right here, you see the word preface, and that a student might assume you're supposed to include that as a heading. Nope, just keep the headings, the first level or level 1 heading, the lit review. Level 1 headings are always centered. And then the level 2 headings, which are the categorized headings, those are actually left aligned, okay? But they are in bold font. All right, so pretty much you can use this again as a guide. The example in the course room works great as well. It's just some differences between the examples. So sometimes I have to, use myself, to help guide my students if there are any confusion going on with the examples. So I am here to clarify any misconceptions you may have. But pretty much the lit review's goal is to discuss the literature. You're not arguing in the lit review. And I believe a lot of students confuse that. You're arguing in your Unit 6 for your body paragraphs. Your body paragraphs are the reflection of your thesis, okay? So right now, that research that you grabbed for your annotated bibliography, that's what you're supposed to be putting into your lit review. And you're synthesizing, meaning you're having a conversation with these sources, okay? And you can briefly include an analysis of what the research is saying. So pretty much an example of that would be you have, let's see right here, this professor, and, you go down, and this one pretty much focuses a lot more on this source. But one thing I do tell students, when you're synthesizing, you are to synthesize multiple sources, okay? So this example here, it's okay in the sense that it does introduce what the research is saying, but this one here is probably the strongest paragraph because you have different source information going on. Starting with probably this paragraph is probably the best, okay? You can have, a paragraph with your one source, but that's not necessarily synthesizing. Synthesizing is when you're taking different source material and putting it all together. I don't take off a lot of points for that, but what I do take off points for is not citing at all, okay? So this paragraph is probably the strongest paragraph here with the discussion between, Barnes and Colbert here, or Colbert. So this is what we're looking for. This is what's more effective when it comes to synthesizing your ideas. But I'll take, a paragraph with just, one source, as long as you are consistently reminding your audience that that information is from that one source. The thing about the APA 7th edition is that it changed the way to cite one source in your paragraphs. So instead of consistently citing, as long as you're referencing the person's last name. So right here we have the first in-text citation, which is actually a signal phrase. And signal phrases have the author and then immediately following the year of publication. Okay, so because this paragraph has that one author, you don't have to continually cite as you would the 6th edition. So down here, you don't have the signal phrase with the the year of publication. Okay. And that might be a bit confusing. Confusing. There were some changes made with the 7th edition that I'm scratching my head about. I never understood. But here we have it. It is what it is. Now, if you are using more than one source, then you would have to, put the year of publication for the signal phrase. So similar to what they have done right here. Okay. The Barnes and the Colbert source right here. Okay. So again, remember that the lit review itself focuses on the research. Okay. I know a lot of times students are itching to get to their arguments. That is wonderful. Okay. But just save that for your body paragraphs. The great thing about this project is that you do have a continued opportunity to revise. Unit 5, you can, make changes to the lit review. Unit 6, Unit 7, Unit 8, you have, at least 3 more units to be able to, make those changes. And, I don't want to say get it right, or get it perfect. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for a progression. All right. And then real quickly, here's another one. I like this. This is another strong paragraph where they have, this one has 4 different in-text citations. This is how a synthesis is supposed to look. Okay, so that's a nice visual of the synthesis. All right, so there is some confusion about the conclusion. In the example in the course, and I honestly just noticed that's not a conclusion. That's a continued discussion of the research, okay? Or, the findings, the points, okay? Not a conclusion. And it doesn't have a conclusion as the heading. This one does. You don't have to put a conclusion for the lit review, but you will have a final conclusion for the project. Now, the final conclusion, some people are doing great jobs with summarizing your arguments. Say that for the final conclusion, not the lit review's conclusion. The lit review's conclusion only summarizes what the research is saying, okay, with some, brief analysis here, okay? So like right here, when the student says, in such a polarizing topic, it is critical to acknowledge all aspects of the data and compare it, okay? And so pretty much they're not taking a position yet. They're, analyzing what has already been said, and then you will get the chance to take your position in your Unit 6. Okay, so I just wanted to remind you, just some reminders here, to help you guys out, because I know Unit 4 is a big unit. I'm usually lenient about the due date for Unit 4 as well, because I know was that unit where you start to see it come together, but you might make a big oops before it comes together. And part of my job is to get you back on track, okay? So don't get discouraged, when you are creating the lit review. It's a work in progress, and that's a great thing, okay? So if you have any questions, let me know, but I hope me walking you through this helped just a bit. So remember, you have to cite. You have to cite, okay? I can't stress that any more than what I'm stressing it. When you're using data, statistics, years of publication, years of your publication, or years that are being referenced about a time frame for a historical reference, whatever it is that you are borrowing from your research, you have to cite. Okay, and even speaking of that, you don't want to overwhelm your project with direct quotes. So work on paraphrasing and summarizing a lot more. Okay, you don't want to take chunks of information, directly quote it and put it in your assignment, because now that's, getting into the danger of academic dishonesty as well. So just, be patient with yourselves. You will do great once you pass this hurdle. Some people are doing a great job anyway. A lot of you are trying to get there, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud of you for reaching out to me and acknowledging, that there is still some work to do, but you'll be okay. You will get through this. All right. I hope this was able to help and, with the ideas, but also motivate you as well.